Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Welcome to our show. I'm Carol Carpenter, and this is my fabulous co-host, Travis Johnson. Great. Today, we have a special guest on our podcast, Bryan McDonald. And Bryan is a growth coach and partner on Purpose Growth, a coaching and consulting firm serving entrepreneurs through superior strategies. He has created a track record of success by serving versus selling people. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited. This is going to be fun. I love the authentic, real shit. So let's go.
Look at that. He's got a cuss word right in his opening statement. I love it. I also understand that you have a story that we're going to jump to about cussing with your kids, which is just a favorite pastime of mine. But I want to know, Bryan, what makes you a Titan?
What makes me a Titan? That's a great question. You know, I think everybody has a definition of, going through hell and making it out on the other side. And, I have my own, and I shouldn't be where I'm at. And that's what makes me a Titan. The story doesn't typically end the way the end. It's not the end of my life, but this portion of my life that's happening. I mean, my mom was married 3 times. Second husband was a complete drunk. I mean, chaos was just the ordinary day, growing up. And I should be a drunk drug addict, recluse, not successful, and living at home with mom, and I'm not. Right. My life turned out completely different because at some point in time I made a decision to fight for myself, take full ownership for everything that was happening in my life, even at a young age. And hell or high water, I was gonna make it happen. And I eventually did. Right. So I think everybody's got their unique story going through hell, and what makes me a Titan is I went through hell and came out a hero.
I love
Titan.
There you go. I like how you're angling our words into your story. Yeah, Titan. Yeah. You don't come out a hero. You come out a Titan.
Yep.
That's what it's all about. And I love the fact that I use this in my story too. You got to fight for yourself. You've got to take responsibility, and you've got to make it happen. There's no one coming to save you. There's no magic apology. There's no Dow Jones Industrial Average ending number that's going to make your life better or worse. It has nothing to do with your circumstances, but the choices that we make and taking responsibility for self. And I fucking love that about you, Bryan.
Thank you, man.
I don't care what Carol says. I love that about you.
Oh, excuse me. Like I'm even going to be opposed to it. Come on now. No. And truthfully, it is about choices, right? It's the choices we made through life, and not letting our past define us and make us who we should be, right? Because if we did, we would all be drunks and drug addicts and homeless. And if you think about it, because those adversities were horrible to get through. But we made a choice. We made a choice to make a better lives for ourselves. We made a choice to make sure that we would succeed, to elevate ourselves beyond our circumstances. So I think that's an important thing to bring up. It's all about choices.
Yeah. And younger, I used to, it's like this happened in like stages if you will. Meaning, you know, when I was young, like literally around like 6, I started assessing like, hey, my mom can't take care of herself. It was 5, actually. I remember a very specific moment. My mom and her husband were fighting at like 1 o'clock in the morning. We lived in a tri-level house. My bedroom was at the top of the steps, so I got privy to every single fight. And I remember clearly one day sitting on top of at the top of those 3 steps, listening to my mom and her husband fight. And I realized, or I thought to myself, my mom can't take care of herself. Like this pattern is continuing, like this shit show that I'm watching is continuing. She can't take care of herself. And if she can't take care of herself, then she can't take care of me. I'm like, oh shit, I need to take care of me. Right. And I started, you know, an independent, I'll call it independent journey, you know, taking ownership of what I could at that age. But then I for a long time, I was very, very resentful of my parents. And I blamed my life on their choices, which I think they had an influence on that. But really, you know, probably over the past 10 years, 5 to 10 years, I started realizing that they were just doing the best that they could.
I said that in my book. They were just doing the best they could in the circumstances they had, right?
Yep. 100%.
Limited knowledge that they had, unfortunately.
Yep.
But that directly affects you, right? As a child, it directly affects you. So that's a part that sucks.
Yeah. And actually realizing what you just described, like, hey, they were doing the best they could in the circumstances they're in, actually gave me more freedom to be who I was. Well, I gave myself more freedom to be who I wanted to be or who I was. And it also allowed me to like the resentment and the sadness was like a dead weight on my life, right? Like it was holding me back. And when I released it, I was like, oh shit, I can fly higher, right? Because I'm not holding on to that shit, right? And I stopped owning their shit, right? Like I stopped owning their shit for whatever reason. It's like, oh, there's my parents. They were my parents, and these things happened, so that's my identity. But it wasn't, right?
And
that was
have to perpetuate the cycle, right? You can end
totally,
the cycle with you.
totally. And when I actually started, probably about 2015-ish, I think. I was telling you guys right before we started recording that I helped run a nonprofit. I got into some specific, you know, men's work. It works around Carl Jung's shadows. And getting involved in that and hearing other people's stories about the trauma they went through, I realized that, man, I thought I went through something. I didn't go through shit compared to these people, right? Like I had it fucking good, right? I mean, we all, and it's nothing negative about them. It was more about like how, what am I trying to say? Like how, like I thought that nobody could have it worse, right? Like my experience was my experience and nobody had it worse. Like, how can anybody understand me? And I'm like, whoa, like these guys are going through some crazy shit. Like, and the more I helped them kind of get to where I was, it gave me more freedom again.
It's a comparative thing, right? When you go through the worst thing that you've ever been through, every single person feels like no one else can relate to, because it's the worst shit they've ever gone through. And I've been there, and you've been there, and Carol's been there. And that's the way we all, as soon as we start talking about it and sharing, and we give other people permission to share their stories of tragedy, woe, or whatever, they realize that it's okay to talk about it. B, it's no one's fault, right?
Yeah.
We can play the blame game all day long. I mess with my son sometimes when something happens. You know, my wife will be like, hey, who did this? I'll blame Cole. And Cole's like, what? I was like, I didn't say it was your fault. I said, I'm blaming you.
Blaming you.
And he's like, gee, thanks, Dad. But we all laugh about it. We all have a nice little chuckle. And there's a big difference when you are a kid going through this stuff, and I've been there, and you've been there, and Carol's been there. We blame our parents, and it's not wrong, but it's a little bit misguided because they are doing the best they do. Here's the deal, folks. If you're listening to this right now, your parents guaranteed 100% will fuck your life up.
Yep.
But they focus their life dedicated to you as your parent, focusing on the thing that they were missing when they were kids. Absolutely. I didn't have a lot of stability growing up. I moved 50 damn times. Like, I focused on stability, but that means I missed other things with my kids. My daughter's already come and told me, like, Dad, you really messed this up. I'm like, yeah, I did. But here's the stuff that we were missing when we were kids. I missed this, and this was Mom was missing. Mom was missing her parents, who her dad worked 3 jobs to include working on a farm, right?
Wow.
And like, her parents didn't show up for any of her stuff. So one of her primary drivers as a mom was showing up to all of her stuff. But when we have that thing that we focus on as parents, there's going to be something that we miss.
Yes.
And she's like, well, you weren't really connected with me emotionally. I'm like, fun fact, sweetheart, I'm not connected with anyone emotionally, including your mom.
Yeah.
Including my mom. Right? It's
One
not
day
you.
have to like
everyone.
Travis tell you his story, and maybe he might want to tell it now, but he has a crazy story. And when I heard it, because I was actually with him when he told it to me, I was actually surprised he could be in a room with people and not feel anxiety.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That says a lot about trauma and the effect. One, how we interpret trauma, and two, how that interpretation affects us. Right? Because trauma does not have to be a big, it's an interpretation, right? It does not have to be this big crazy thing that happens. It could be something small, right? Which we carry on for the rest of our lives. So
as a burden and as baggage, and eventually it becomes so heavy that unless you get rid of it, it brings you down. And I think a lot of people need to realize this is where, therapy might be required. Like, you need to talk about it, right? And if you're unwilling to go to therapy, have good friends that will just listen to you, because unburdening your soul as well. When you're talking, it's like you're giving yourself permission to forgive yourself also, as well as all the people that have wronged you. But it's not necessarily.
Fuck yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. You're giving yourself permission to let it go, to get over it,
it disarms it. It disarms it, right? Anything,
no longer a taboo subject, right?
Yep. It disarms it. That works in many things that we're embarrassed or uncomfortable to do. If we call it out, it disarms it. Right. I was just talking to a client today. She didn't want to ask for referrals, and she's like, "Well, I'm Canadian. I'm humble. Blah blah blah." Like, I didn't understand the Canadian thing, but I think I understand the context. And I said, "Okay, here's how you're going to do this: is you're going to go to whoever you want to ask and say, hey, I'm really asking you something. I want to ask you something, and I'm really uncomfortable with it because I pride myself as being a humble person. And I said, if you go through this process, you will disarm it." The same thing is you give yourself, or in the world, permission for it to be okay that you feel a certain way, because it is okay for you to feel a certain way. There's nothing wrong with it.
It's fear of being judged. It's fear of not being accepted.
Fear, shame, guilt.
Obviously,
yep.
Is the primary of all of us human beings, is, being accepted in society. So much so that you see people go nutto on social media to fit in, right?
Yep.
And there's something to be said about being unique as well. I mean, I hate the fact that we're all trying to be carbon copies of each other. Look at us. None of us look the same. None of us are the same. None of us have the same talents. If we did, it would be awfully disgusting, incestual, children running around, right?
It'd be boring. It'd be boring. Right? The world would suck, right?
Yeah, it would. And we look at the variety of people that we have and how interesting everybody is. If we would just shut up and talk to each other, shut up meaning shut up on social media, like cut that shit out and really connect with people, right?
That's the only way I vent. I mean, come on.
What, on social media?
No, I mean, I don't, but I'm sure there's people that do. Like, whatever the situation is, there's more than one way to look at it. This This is a
Yeah.
story that a comedian told. I can't remember his name right now, but it's not mine. I'm not taking credit for it. He's like, man, I'm having a problem with this girl. Like, she's crazy. Like, she slashed my tires. She took my phone from me. And like, we were out in the cabin in the middle of nowhere. Like, it's crazy. That's one way of looking at it. Another way to look at it, like, so you're telling me that you couldn't get away and you couldn't call for help? It's the same story.
Same story.
Yeah, one's a little dirty, right? It's the same story, but it depends on the story that you tell yourself
Sure.
to define the situation. Would I assume that that story is terrible? I would. I'm not interested in being around those kind of people, but some people, they're kind of like, I like this. I'm getting turned on. This is kind of getting me.
they get
I'm not
on
that
it,
kind of
for sure.
person.
Yeah.
Well, I think our futures are like, how do I describe this? So there's consistently a future in front of us, right? Consistently all the time. And I believe that our futures are determined by how we interpret what happens to us and the stories we make up about that. Right. Because like what you were describing, you could, what you're just saying is like, oh, the second one is like, oh, this is a little scandalous. We can live into something scandalous. The other one's like, we can live into getting the hell out of here. And what the fuck is going on? Right. Like that,
Yeah.
they're two diabolical opposing directions. Right. Same situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very true. So do you think in doing that work for you, it's been cathartic?
Yeah, you know, and I realized the work started early on. I just didn't realize it. I mean, I mentioned my mom's second husband was a drunk. I mean, I came home one day in second or third grade, and my mom's friends were at the house, a bunch of neighbors. This guy had kids in their 20s and they had babies. They were at my house, and my mom had a nervous breakdown where she was like literally committed to the hospital because of it, right? And right after that, we started going to Al-Anon. He was going to AA, we were going to Al-Anon, and I started learning some of the, I was going to use the word coping mechanism, not coping. It's some strategies back then that I think I pulled out later in life and just dusted them off and said, hey, like, how do I work this and use this? So the work started a long time ago, but it's been, you know, very, very soothing, helpful. I love myself more.
For those that don't know, what's Al-Anon?
Yeah.
Oh, so thank you. Al-Anon is the
Young ones wouldn't know it.
Yeah,
I know what
Al-Anon
it
is the, so AA is for the alcoholic. Al-Anon are for the family and friends affected by the alcoholic. So it's a non-drunk AA program. Lack of
Yeah,
that's
it's really going to help
that's
you with the understanding of what's going on, regardless of whose fault it is. There's also Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous.
Mhm.
Too familiar with that one.
Yeah, it's a crazy world.
God, Travis.
I'm
So
not
just
sure
so
if
you
it's
all know,
doping
all
or
y'all
not.
listening, I say some off the wall shit just to see
Yeah.
how much Carol's paying attention.
Oh,
And you'll
good.
see based on her reactions whether or not I'm full of shit.
Well, then,
or if I'm being truthful. So
maybe I should go in that mode, because that's one of the things that my life like hates. Like, I'll just say some off the wall shit just for the hell of it, right? So maybe I'll throw something in here, along the way.
There you go. You can anytime.
yeah.
So
What-
3 times. Your mother 3 times divorced.
So no,
My
third
mom's
husband.
got 3. Is that a big deal?
Third
I'm
husband.
just asking because,
she
like,
was-
as a child, right? I mean,
Mom's got 3, dad's got 3, grandma had 4. Is that not how everyone does it?
Good
Oh
Lord,
yeah, right.
Good Lord, no.
Oh, see,
So
that
her,
was just
my
my
mom's.
standard operating procedure. I thought that's how yeah. I'm already looking into wife 2 and 3, you know, whenever
Hey,
mine
stop
takes
it.
power. No, is that not okay?
Oh god, this is gonna be awesome. You didn't answer the question now. So
I'm
for
taking applications.
for my mom, so her third husband was the longest, and he passed away. They didn't get divorced. I mean, he was just old. But third time's a charm. And honestly, she's never going to see this. I probably would tell her this. I think she just kind of threw in the towel in the third one, meaning she was older, like maybe in her 50s. Yeah, 50s when she got married. And I think she's just like, well, I'm gonna, live my life with somebody. I might as well do it with this guy. I don't think it was like love,
She
right?
absolutely loved him. Yeah.
I told my wife before we got married, when we were talking about getting married, I said, look, I am doing the exact opposite of my mother, right? So if you want to get married, this is an all-in thing. Like, I'm not going to discuss unwinding this. We're going to fix our problems. And if you want out right now, right? Because when I say I'm all in, right? Like shit's going to get crazy. Yeah, shit's going to get crazy. And we're going to have our ups and downs, but I was in love with her and I was going to ride it out. So the crazy thing I think is I ran so hard away from the other direction that my mom was going, that it was actually a gift that my mom gave me, the ability to have a family and not see as like, hey, there's always this eject button I can push. Right.
Well, that's the life you didn't want. If anything,
totally.
She showed the example of what you didn't want, so
totally.
that you have the life that you really want.
Yep. And then here, the crazy thing is probably, how old is this? 9. So maybe 3 years ago, I'm talking to my mom on the phone outside my house. I remember it clearly. And my mom literally said to me, I wish you would choose me over your family sometimes. And I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to answer that question? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's like this madness continues, right? It's like I can't believe my mom just said that to me. Like, right? That's my family, right? Not
but you can believe it. She showed you your entire life.
I know.
It's the kind of person she was.
Yeah, the comment is more around like an astonished, like I can't believe that, right? Not that I can't believe it. It's more of just like,
you first for any of the circumstances. I mean, think about this.
No. Oh,
so seriously, what makes her think that you would choose her first then?
So
narcissism.
Here's an even better context. So I graduated from I grew up in Pennsylvania my whole life until I graduated from Penn State in 2001. When I graduated in 2001 in May, my mom was living in Chicago with her soon-to-be husband, and I literally picked up, and on a Thursday after I graduated, I said, I'm moving to Chicago, and I packed up all my stuff. Sunday I came out here, and I moved here to be close to her. 5 years later, she moved away. Her husband was in a wheelchair. He couldn't travel. They had 2 houses. They were in financial trouble. I was telling her to stay here. Don't go to your house where she was moving to in Tennessee. And then she got mad because we weren't coming to visit her.
Oh, dear God.
And then she's like, why are you choosing your family? I'm like, whoa, I chose you. I came to you. Right. And then you fucking disappeared.
And you left.
Yeah. Like, you can't make this shit up.
You're supposed to keep following her, Bryan.
No. I don't think so.
That's called parent guilt.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I realized at some point, like, I'm not the child, I'm the parent, and I don't want that. And I was like, this is fucked up. Like, why do I have to act like the parent? I want to be the kid kicking and screaming and acting like a little kid, but I'm not.
But that was never your role, right? Like, I took a different role. I was the adult. I was the one taking care of everybody. So my entire life. So you too, right, Travis? Yeah. So that role, you don't get to pick it. It picks you. And unfortunately, it's not like we get to choose and say, oh, I want to step into that role. You're forced into that role, whether you like it or not.
Yep. Down to the point where my parents did not. So when my mom, she divorced her second husband, I was in like 6th grade. um, she started moving up in the world in her job, and the only way she could move up is she would pick up and leave to another town, kind of go where the jobs are with a big corporate company. And she asked my dad to come live with my brother and I, so we didn't move. And my dad just moved in with us at the place we're renting because we had moved so many times with my mom. And my dad wasn't. Here's the relationship with my dad. We lived about 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia, and on a Friday, if my dad wasn't home around 7 o'clock on a Friday, I knew he was gone for the weekend. Didn't say anything. Thought, hey, if he disappeared, they won't notice. I would notice, right? So my dad wasn't around, right? And neither of my parents took me to get my license. I was working a job. I was working 35 hours a week going to high school. And some lady I worked with that was a manager caught wind that I didn't have my license. I was walking to work, and her husband took me to get my license. My parents didn't take me to get my license. My dad didn't ask a question. I didn't ask shit about it. I had to put paperwork for college in front of them, say, hey, you need to sign this. I did all the paperwork. I found out what we had to do to get, financial help. And here's where I'm going. Like, I figured it out all myself.
Yeah. But there's something to be said about that. Being the person that figures it out, being the person that's a leader. What do you think that gets you ready for in life?
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, that got me ready for a lot. It's just that what I mentioned earlier about the resentment and the sadness. It was like a dead weight on that responsibility I took for myself, right? It's like I did it even though I didn't want to do it, right? And I kind of, it took me a while after college to realize what I was doing, right? Like I used to hate that I had to do that, but I look back, I'm like, no, that was actually good, right? Like, that was great that I did that, even though I did it begrudgingly.
Right.
You're in charge of your own destiny. And I wanted to say something about your relationship with your mom, because people listening to this need to hear this. If someone in your family is trying to use guilt or shame to get what they want, you don't have to put up with it. You don't have to tolerate that. You don't need that in your life. No amount of sheer DNA gives someone permission to treat you that way. Anyone that tries to do that to me in my world, I'd be like, now I know what kind of person you are. Thank you for letting me know that you don't care about me at all. And I've said this to their face, and they look at me like, how can you say that? I was like, how can you try to use guilt to make me do something that is not something that I would normally do? Like, you using guilt on me is the terrible thing here. Not the fact that I called you out on it. That's not the terrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Shame never works. Ever, 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 ever.
Shame works a lot. That's why people use it. Shame and guilt work all the time.
Well,
that's why people use it.
Let's talk about that, because shame works for let's call it the instant action somebody is looking for, right? You shame me, I'll stop doing that, but it doesn't change me as a person. It only changes what I've done. Actually, it makes people retreat and does the opposite, right? It's a temporary fix to a permanent problem.
Well, but the permanent fix is being very clear about your boundaries.
Totally.
And if you're clear about your boundaries, then nobody can step over anything and get away with it. You be like, yeah, you're fucking out of here. Get out of, I don't want anything to do with you. Mm-hmm. You just literally busted my boundaries and you knew them. And now you expect me to forgive you? No.
Mm-hmm.
I'll forgive people, but I'll be damned if I'm going to walk back out into traffic and hit by the bus again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, forgive, but not forget. I'll forgive you, but I'm not going to forget, because you're never going to do that to me again.
Yep. But you can get rid of them. They don't have to be
this is how my sister operates in my life. Is she'll be as sweet as she can be to try to get whatever the thing is. And if I say I'm unavailable or I can't, then all of a sudden I'm a piece of shit, loser, blah, 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 blah. And like, thank you for telling me and reminding me who you are, that you're only behaving this way because you need something from me and no one else is willing to give it to you. I've
Yeah.
got her blocked on everything that I own, and I'll get random messages, and I know it's her because she can't send me a message without calling me some kind of name.
What?
There'll
Wow.
be a message like, "Hey, I hope everything is going great for you, butthead. I really miss your family." Blah 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 blah. She'll have to call me a name in there because she can't not, because that's how
No,
she
just
operates.
dig at you.
That's how
Yeah.
she operates, right?
But think about, I don't know the situation with your sister, but what I've learned is, one, set boundaries with those people, but at the same time, I personally appreciate, with empathy, the amount of sadness going on in her,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because she has to do that, right? I'm not forgiving her,
right.
but it's,
It's her way of seeking attention because regardless, she knows that's a trigger point for
Yeah.
Oh,
Travis,
yeah.
right?
I laugh at it now. I'll call my dad and be like, "Here's the nonsense your daughter sent me today." I won't say my sister. I'll say your daughter. I won't take
That's
ownership of her. And when my dad talks to me, he'll say like your sister. He won't say his daughter.
My God.
She's in jail right now. Like she borrowed someone's phone to send me a hateful text.
what?
Yeah,
Oh.
I got one this week. She's been in jail for a little over a month now. It's like her 10th time in 2 years. Like,
So did something happen between you and her, or is it just the totality of her
oh,
life?
you mean like when she tried to kill me, or do you mean when she's not taking responsibility for anything in her entire life, or do you
Yeah.
mean the 4 kids from 3 different guys? Her
Holy
first with
shit.
her husband wasn't really her husband's; it was this other guy. Like, but nothing's ever her fault. You mean that kind of stuff?
Oh my God.
Train
Oh
wreck.
yeah, oh yeah, that's
Oh
great.
my God. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing, is like, I love the fact that you said nobody's going to come save you, right? Because the blame game never works.
Well, I thought
It's
it was Biden's fault. I mean, it's Trump's fault. I mean, obviously it's Obama's fault, but I'd be damned if it wasn't Bush's fault.
right,
Whoop de fucking do. Congrats on
right.
pointing the finger. That don't change your life one bit, does it?
No. And that's the thing, is that being that victim mentality. Well, shit, I'll just talk about it from my perspective, right? When at any point in my life, a lot of times when I was younger, when I got into victim mentality, all it was a pity party for myself. Nothing changed
And there's no
at
presence.
all.
It's the only party where there's no presence.
Right. So it's fucking insane that here's a question I always ask myself when something doesn't go right, especially when there's another person involved. I always ask myself, what role did I play in that? Like, I always play something in it, right? It's not 100% my fault, but what role do I play in it, right? It takes 2 to tango, right? And sometimes my role in it was allowing the person to do what they did to affect me negatively and not draw the line in the sand, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with what I allowed to happen. Because
Yes.
You
Yes.
You put up-
What you allow will continue.
yes, what is it, the saying, like, what you put up with persists, or something like that, like something in that direction. It's
Yep.
totally true, right? We get stuck in patterns, processes, and like the only way to get out is remove yourself.
Mhm.
Right.
Set the boundary.
Right. So what would you say is something, and I always ask this, Travis knows this. I always like to ask people, what is something that you don't tell a lot of people, but a lot of people would not know about you?
So what is something that I don't tell a lot of people and not many people know?
Something about you that not a lot of people know.
Yeah. Something about you that not a lot of people know. Interesting, bizarre. We had one guest.
I'm trying to pick which one.
Oh,
you can have multiple answers. We're okay with that.
Oh, you're like,
Yeah,
dude,
this is a
what?
multiple choice
The
exam.
more there are, guess what? The more interesting you become.
So I'll give it in context of some other stuff. So I repeated a pattern that I learned from my parents, and I went bankrupt. Not many people know that. I used to be embarrassed about it. I mean, I don't walk around the world telling people, but when I met my wife, I was in the mortgage industry. I was the top loan officer. I was in the office. Life was good. And the minute I met her, my business started going like that. And I went bankrupt before we got married, and she still married me. Like, I got to keep her. I don't tell many people that because I don't know. If somebody asks, I would tell them, but I don't fly a flag around it, right? That's
Why do you think that happened? Why do you think he went bankrupt?
I was more committed to becoming bankrupt than I was to actually fixing my situation.
Wow. What a great perspective on that. More committed to becoming bankrupt.
Totally. We talked about it's all about choices. I made a bunch of choices that moved me in that direction, knowing that, hey, if I go this fast, right, making these decisions, I could tip this thing over, and I did. And then it was a perfect storm. I was what was happening is I was doing loans for mostly real estate investors, small commercial and single family home investments. And then I started getting into the game. And then, I had great relationships with the banks that we were doing loans with. And, they started calling me and saying, hey, Bryan, we're publishing rates and we're doing loans. I'm going to tell you right now, our underwriters are not going to close them. And in that situation, I said, I'm going to go buy more real estate. And I didn't change the direction. I didn't I niched myself so much in that area. I had people who did 4 or 5 loans with me on their investment properties, but they did their actual home residence somewhere else, not knowing like, oh, you can do that for me. And the bottom fell out. I mean, the bottom between my wife and I fell out when one day I walked down the steps of our apartment outside to get my car, and my car wasn't there. Repo. And then I had to tell her. And she found out everything. She's like, why don't you tell me? I'm like, this is the most embarrassing thing to tell somebody. Like, I'm trying to catch up and I couldn't. But again, that was right now, that's the greatest gift, one of the greatest gifts that have happened to me because of the perspective and the learning that came from it. I now know how to be more committed. I'm going to rephrase this. I now know how to point my commitment to things in directions that actually help me and not hurt me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was an expensive lesson, but
most lessons that are worthwhile really hurt and are really expensive.
Very expensive. And I learned from it. I think consciously, right? That's the point in time where I made the decision to not fail at anything and to learn from things when they didn't go right. I mean, I was making 6 figures within 9 months of going bankrupt. Right. So I did an about face.
Well, let's also say it's okay to make mistakes and fail.
Totally.
Because the truth is, I see this to a lot of people. It's better to fail quickly than fail slowly.
Yeah.
Because it costs you more to fail slowly. If you fail quickly, you can figure out, oh, that didn't work. Let's move on. That didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And it stings. I
love that you're willing to share that with us. And so many people need to understand that whatever their choices are leading them right now, you can A, recover from it. B, it doesn't mean it's the end. C, it doesn't mean you're some kind of terrible person. Please stop attaching negative emotions and your identity to all this stupid shit out there. Please, dear God. But I don't understand why this happened. I was like, well, you were dumb as fuck. You saw it coming. We told you about it. You still did it, and it hurts. Let's move on. But you do understand. You just don't want to admit that you saw it coming.
You want to hold on to it.
You want to hold on to it for some reason that doesn't benefit you or anyone around you. Let that shit go. There's a whole Disney movie dedicated to that concept.
Let it go, Elsa.
Frozen. Let that shit go. Like,
You know,
if it was like adult Frozen, it'd be like, let that shit go. Please, dear
let
God.
that shit go. Let it go.
yeah, that'd be awesome if they said
Let
let
that shit go.
Actually, anytime my kids play that song, that's what I'm gonna say. Let that shit go.
Well, we got to get Dinah Menzel on here to come on and sing "Let That
There
Shit
you
Go"
go.
on the podcast. That'd be great.
Oh
You know,
my
my oldest daughter, I think you guys said you had kids, and my two daughters are complete opposites, right? Like, I can't believe how diametrically opposed they are. And my oldest is very much a rule follower, very, very scared of failing, right? Like, she just
Oldest
views
usually
the world that
are.
way. And I've had conversations with her about, hey, it's not like the challenge is not, how do I say this? Worrying about failing or not. The challenge is focusing on learning from it or not. Because if you're failing from it, you're not learning. If you're learning from it, you're learning, right? I said, just, you can. I also told her, you can't actually make progress without failing, right? We don't learn how to do things better by doing them right all the time. We learn from doing them wrong, like, hey, I'm not going to do it that way, right? So you can't escape failing. It's just, when you fail, just apply the learning perspective, and it won't burn as much, or it won't burn again. And I'm trying to pound that into her head, because
God. The failure is not taking the first step and not trying.
yeah,
That is a true
totally.
failure.
Totally. You're never going to get there. And one thing that came up for me when you guys were talking after I explained that was, I actually realized that, I went through a phase of my life, let's call it right after college, in my early 20s, where I was infatuated with being successful, and infatuated with doing personal growth, but I wasn't committed to actually doing the work to get it done.
There's
And
the difference.
after I went bankrupt, I went all in on, I'm going to change, hell or high water. I'm going to have people tell me what they see that I don't see. I'm going to listen. I'm going to read the hell out of books. Right. And that actually, like, is part of it wasn't hockey stick, but it was like the about face, because I realized, like, hey, I was just living in this like dreamland of maybe sort of someday I'll be successful. And I got put in a world of, hey, it's, you actually have to get your hands dirty to be successful.
Yeah.
And there was a big distinction there.
You can't necessarily see what others see, right?
Right.
So from the outside looking in, they can pinpoint things better than you sitting there trying to, figure it out for yourself, because you might be a tiny bit biased, right?
I did this shit. It's great. Don't I know how great I am?
It's perfect, right?
That's perfect. So you mentioned this earlier. We mentioned therapy, right? Therapy only works if you're willing to take responsibility for yourself. Therapy says that the answer is inside you. And the answer is, for everyone going to therapy, is that it's your fault. That's the answer. It's your fault, and you have to take responsibility for your shit. All of psychology, all of therapy is now solved because it is indeed your fault. Business, the people who are successful in business know that the answer is not inside them, and they have to go seek advice. They have to try new shit. They have to pay for mentorship, coaching, whatever the thing is, try the new, all of those things. The entrepreneur, the business person knows the answer is not inside them.
Right. It's very
Yes.
true. And you know what? It's not a one size fits all kind of thing, because
No.
all different kinds of coaches, right? And I'll equate this with when I was learning to swing a golf club. I went to several coaches to swing a golf club. And I can't tell you how many times I was frustrated and wanted to swing swing the club at their heads, because the way they said it did not resonate with me. And I would go and swing it, and man, have you ever hit a golf ball wrong? I mean, the way it shakes through your body is like, I'm going to murder you, asshole, if you make me, keep hitting this ball and I'm hitting it wrong, right? So I finally, though, found my very last swing coach, finally found somebody that actually spoke my language because it was simple. He didn't
Yeah.
overanalyze it. He didn't, he was a no bullshit type of guy. I got along with him, right?
Mhm.
So when he explained it to me, I was like, oh, well, fuck, that sounds way more easier, right? I swang the golf club for the first time, hit the sweet spot, fucking flew that sucker. I was like, okay, this is my coach now, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the other times, I literally wanted to murder those swing coaches. Like I don't know who they were teaching, but then I realized too, hey, just because they didn't speak my language doesn't mean they didn't speak somebody else's language.
Yep.
And that is why I don't believe there's a one size fits all for everybody. For somebody, it's a life coach that can help. For somebody else, it could be a psychologist. We don't know because we don't know how those people are wired.
See,
Yeah.
I'm glad you followed that up, because I was going to say therapy is your fault. Golf is obviously the other person's fault.
Because I'm damn good at golf, and his instructions were just fucking shitty, right? That's all.
Yeah, you don't actually
you're
ever
all-
swing the club, right? You swing your hips. You swing the
it's
club,
like
it'll never work.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just like this really cool pendulum, but like the way he said it actually worked. Like I didn't feel like I was doing the wrong thing all the time. And
Okay.
it's fun.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I've got a
it's
question.
amazing you find the right person to talk to that can really connect with you. I sucked at trig in high school. Worst grades I ever got in my life. I got a D in trig. I got an F in physics. I go to college, and the Navy required me to do calc and calc-based physics, and I was like, I didn't fucking get that shit 10 years ago.
Yeah,
How am I gonna
right.
get it now? And I got the right person that was, what was he teaching? He was teaching trig, but they didn't call it trig. He taught me is like pre-calculus, and he was
Mhm.
able to walk me through the two concepts that I didn't get 10 years
Mhm.
before that.
And he
And he explained it to me in like 5 fucking minutes. I was like, you mean to tell me it was that easy? And that was the stupid piece I was missing a decade ago? He's like, sounds like it.
Yep.
Once I had those, I was able to do all the other stuff. And I was like, well, son of a bitch.
So I got a question for both of you based on what you're saying. So when you think back on the people you didn't connect with, how do I not lead the witness? I'm just going to have to. How did you think those people you didn't connect with were focused more on you or focused more on them and their expertise?
I would say them and their expertise. Like they
Yeah.
were trying to teach me from their perspective instead of getting to know me and teach me. I would call it meeting me where I'm at.
Yeah. What about you, Travis? Same, different?
I played the fifth, so I don't self-incriminate.
Because I think that's one of the biggest challenges is when I'll speak for myself. When I go for help,
Mhm.
I'm interested in somebody who is interested in me and where I'm at first, rather than what they know and who they are, right? And I've always found that to be super helpful.
Trying to fit you into their picture so they can
Totally.
analyze you, right? And
Totally.
it's like, well, no, because I'm over here and I'm not you, and I don't have the same problems as you, nor do I think like you. So I'm
Mhm.
coming to you because I need help over here, but you keep trying to like guide me back over to where you are because it's a comfortable space over here. Very uncomfortable over here to analyze me.
Yeah, that's a challenge I talk to other business owners about is, hey, if you're not meeting people where they're at, and you're the problem, not them,
Yeah.
right?
And
Like
ego's getting in the way with that.
totally, right? Like learning how to validate yourself through the success of other. Well, I'll speak for myself. Sorry, I don't want to project that. It's not about me. It's about the success that the people that I work with have. And as long as I'm making that happen, I don't give a shit how we got there, right? It's different for all of them, right? That's the most important thing. And that's been like a gift of freedom to me, because it's just I found that to be a super helpful perspective, right? And I see so many other coaches fail that way.
So what would you consider your greatest success? And then what would you consider your greatest failure?
Greatest success is the fact that I'm married with 2 kids and a tight-knit family based on the shit I was through. Like that, if I have nothing else in life, I wouldn't need I wouldn't need anything more, right? And that's something that I work on every day, right? I gotta keep it to keep it the biggest success. So I think that, but the biggest failure.
And don't call, I mean, I hate to call it a failure, but let's just say the biggest mistake you made in life.
I think that the biggest mistake is not learning. How do I describe this? What I know now, like all of the personal work, like that. The biggest mistake is not having the awareness to work on myself in a way that I work on myself now. So it took a freaking bankruptcy and you know, a car crash right before that for me to just fucking finally wake up, right? Like to let go of blaming everybody else, you know, blaming my parents for my situation and not fully owning it. I owned a part of it. I just didn't own all of it, because when I look at like what happened after that, it's like, shit, my life would have been richer 10 more years if I would have just realized it. Huh?
It's true. Yeah. If you had figured it out sooner, you'd be
If I figured it out sooner.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I really can't think of anything much else that has been a failure that wasn't that turned into something so great.
Well, I think that's the wonderful part is, you know, we can tell people that, you know, if you could get over yourself and just really own that shit, you would be ahead of everybody else in no time. It's that we're reluctant to own it. And that's what keeps us. It delays us from moving forward. So it's a perfect example.
So the funny thing about what you said, I find it funny is when I meet people who own their shit now, I trust them more than people who don't.
Oh yeah,
like
playing the victim role.
Way more.
Yeah.
Right? Way more, right? If you tell me like, oh, I fucked this up, here's how I fucked that up, and I'm just coming to that, it's like, okay, I can trust you. The people that you know are fucking shit up and just not say anything, I don't trust them, right? Like I would rather somebody spill the beans, right? 100%.
That is the number one thing I told my students when I was teaching for the Navy. I was like, look, you're going to do something that's stupid. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to fuck something up. Do you want to know the fastest way to get out of trouble? And they're like, what do you mean the fastest way? I'm like, you ready for this? Write this down. It's a very simple process, but you got to write this down. It's going to be tested on it. It's one of the questions on the exam, like foot stopper. Like, you have to know this. Like, step 1, walk in there and say, hey, I fucked up. It's my fault. Here's what I did. And here's what I'm going to do to fix it. Number 2, you are now out of trouble. And they were like, what? Yeah. Like, you're not going to get fired. They're not going to fire you from the Navy.
Oh my God.
You're going to break a $10 million part. They're not kicking you out of the military.
Fuck,
so just say, hey, I fucked it up. I didn't do this right. Here's what I'm going to do to move forward. And what is your boss going to say? Okay, then. Yeah. And when people make that adjustment, they name the adjustment and they make it, I trust you even more on top of that, because you told on yourself, you said how you're going to fix it, and then you fixed it. Like that's who I want to run with.
Accountability.
Because 100%, right? Because accountability is not a like I can't. None of us here can hold any of us, other of us accountable. We can only hold ourselves accountable, right? I can create a space where you can hold yourself accountable, but I can't make you hold yourself accountable. So when I meet people that hold themselves accountable, we're going to do something together. I don't know what it is, but we're going to do something.
Yeah,
because I can
trust you. 95% of this world doesn't take accountability.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
Super
it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Super frustrating.
Oh, it's stupid. It's fucking stupid.
Right? I'm just happy to know right up front what kind of person they are.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. oh, it's this guy's fault down over here. Cool. Like, what are you writing down? I'm like, oh, I'm just removing you from my phone because I know that we're never going to talk again. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's not their fault, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
It's maybe partially their fault, but the majority of it's on you.
Yeah.
Yep.
You didn't take the time to read the 104 pages and the terms of conditions of the thing you signed up for.
Right.
Right.
Right, Charlie.
I want to go back a little bit to something you said about coaches and not meeting people where they are. I think I've seen the military develop over the last 20 or so years and change styles a little bit. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is what motivates other people. When you understand what motivates that person or how they operate, you can then function in whatever you need to do. I've been a leader for about, I don't know, every damn minute of my life, it seems. I've been a leader in some way, shape, or form. Some people just need to know what the rules are, and then they go and work. Some people need a kick in the ass to work. Some people need you to hold their hand. Some people need you to scream at them. Some people need you to talk nice to them. Some people need to see you working before they'll ever start working. Whatever that thing is that gets the other person moving, if you don't know what that is, you can't work with them.
Right.
That's
the magic key.
Guide them. You have to understand them and their style.
I think Carol said it earlier around bias is what happens is our bias shows up and we expect other people to accept, operate in ways we do. And then we get mad at it, right? Like, that's stupid, right? Like, they're not going to do it the same way.
We're projecting our values on other people.
Yeah. Right. That's why a couple times you see me say, I was like saying the world, right? I'm trying to own what I say because I do my best not to project on the world because I see it happening all the time. And bias is a serious thing, right? Like, we need to get out of our own way. If you're in the business of helping other people, you need to remove yourself get out of the way and figure out how they operate and help them get to where they want to go.
Gotta ask questions, get to know who you're dealing with.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And don't base any of those opinions that are appearing in your head, right, about that individual, including your biases. You just got to be open and just be an empty room, accept all the information. And then that's where you collect the data to draw some conclusions to help those individuals.
Totally. I love that perspective, right? I wish more people understood that because the world would operate more efficiently. We would have less drama and conflict.
Oh, no. Hold on, Brian. There are people that love drama and conflict. And it just
that's not my people.
Right? I know.
Yeah,
not my people either. But I'm telling you, there's people that say all the time, I don't like drama. Guess what? They fucking love it.
Yeah,
and they bring it everywhere they go, but they're the first ones to tell you, I fucking hate drama. And I'm like, really, dude? Because I watch all of it. Follow your ass.
Maury would be out here and be like, the test results say that's a lie. Hey, Brian, this has been a shit ton of fun. Really excited and glad to have you on the show today. Where is the one singular place you want people to find you?
The one singular place. So everybody will always be able to find me at my personal website. It's McDonald Bryan, my last name, first name with a Y, because my life has been backwards. So I made I made it backwards. That'll always be pointed to the place people can find me. And I have to say, this is one of the most fun, real, authentic conversations I've had on a platform like this in a while. So I appreciate you guys. I'm going to be smiling about this for a while.
We appreciate you coming on. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.